Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, delivered a wide-ranging speech on trade relations with the United States, and he began with a clear statement of purpose. Throughout our negotiations with the United States on a new trade and security relationship, the objectives of Canada's new government have been constant. First, to protect Canadian workers and their families. Second, to reinforce the competitiveness of Canadian businesses. And thirdly, to build the strongest economy in the G7. He explained that these negotiations have been unfolding while the United States has been fundamentally transforming its own approach to trade. This new U.S. trade policy has several motivations to raise tariff revenues to protect strategic industries, to encourage foreign investment in the United States, and to change trade and non-trade policy in U.S. partners. That shift has not happened in a vacuum. Carney reminded Canadians that the new trade climate has been shaped directly by President Donald Trump, who returned to the White House with a pledge to intensify his America First economic vision. Since January, Trump has carried that out by imposing sweeping tariffs on imports from Canada. In February, his administration announced duties of 25% on nearly all Canadian imports, with energy facing a 10% rate. By midsummer, those tariffs were raised again to 35%, with the president justifying the move by pointing to cross-border fentanyl trafficking and Canada's decision to maintain retaliatory duties. The result, Carney stressed, is a dramatic hardening of the U.S. stance toward trade partners. To achieve those ends, Washington rolled out a series of actions that extended far beyond Canada. Those began near the start of this year with the so-called AIPA tariffs against Canada and Mexico, based on U.S. concerns about the border and fentanyl trafficking. Those were quickly followed by reciprocal tariffs on every U.S. trade partner and very high sectoral tariffs applied globally on strategic industries. This escalation has affected nearly every major Canadian export sector. The lumber industry has been hit particularly hard, while steel and aluminum face uncertain futures. At the same time, Carney pointed out the United States has continued to sign trade agreements with other countries, but at steep cost. First, baseline tariffs that cover a broad range of goods and services that are substantially higher than those U.S. These changes echo earlier clashes under Trump's first presidency, when national security was invoked to justify steel and aluminum tariffs against Canada. What is different now is the scale and the rhetoric. The president has not only defended these measures as essential for American workers, but has gone so far as to suggest that Canada might be better off as the 51st state. Comments that Carney described as both provocative and damaging to public trust between the two countries. Carney pressed on, underscoring how access to the American market has now been turned into a bargaining chip. Countries must now buy access to the world's largest economy through a combination of tariffs, investments, unilateral trade liberalization, and policy changes in their home markets. For Canada, that has meant adopting a careful balance between retaliation and conciliation. As in previous trade disputes, Canada has implemented a series of retaliatory tariffs. Their objectives have been to protect Canadian workers and businesses and to incentivize a negotiated settlement with the United States. Yet, in recent weeks, there have been signs of compromise. After a direct call between Carney and Trump in late August, Canada agreed to lift its counter tariffs on U.S. goods covered under USMCA, a move designed to de-escalate tensions and preserve what advantages still exist in the trade relationship. As a result of that decision by the United States, the actual U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods is 5.6%. Compare that to the 16% global average that remains the lowest amongst all of the United States trading partners. And more than 85% of Canada-U.S. trade is now tariff-free. So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. Still, Carney was careful to note that not all disputes are settled. Canada will continue to maintain tariffs on steel, aluminum, and autos while negotiations remain unresolved. These industries, he argued, are too strategic to compromise and will be at the center of Canada's preparations for the formal USMCA review next year. At the same time, Carney emphasized that trade and security are increasingly inseparable. Following my conversation with the President of the United States yesterday, Canada and the United States will intensify our discussions to